Great. Thanks, Kimberly. Welcome, everybody. Have the next slide. All right. So you're going to hear from me today, first of all, and then my colleagues, Julie Petro, um, Director of Communications, Tommy Tepper, Director of Finance and Operations, and Stephanie Harley, our Director of Staff and Board Engagement. So let me start off. Okay. Talk a little bit about what we're going to talk about. And we're quite excited today to be able to launch our new 4-year strategy, which we're calling ORCID 2030. But before I do that, I'll talk a little bit about the background to ORCID, and then we'll go through each of our new strategic themes one by one. Then we'll have a brief update on governance and aim to leave some time for Q&A at the end. So next slide, please. All right, so hopefully many of you already know this, but just to recap, we provide 3 main services here at ORCID. The ORCID ID itself, the unique persistent identifier for researchers and contributors, which is free of charge for all to use. The ORCID record, which is the digital CV or profile, which is connected to the ORCID ID, that can include employment, education, funding, peer review, research outputs, and other metadata. And last but not least, the ORCID APIs, which enable now more than 7,000 systems in the scholarly infrastructure world to connect with the ORCID data, the ORCID IDs, and the ORCID records. Next slide. So we are a very international organization. We have researchers using ORCID in literally every country in the world. Currently, we have over 11 million active researchers. By active, we mean they've used ORCID within the last year. We're a member-supported organization, so we have member organizations approaching 1,500 of those. Again, around the world, we have members in 68 countries. Many of those participate in one of our national or regional consortia. We have 29 of those. And lastly, ORCID itself is very international. Our 41 staff are based in 14 countries around the world, all of the continents apart from Oceania and Antarctica. Next slide. So once again, I'm happy to report that we have continued our track record of financial resilience. We have generated a small surplus since 2019 every year consistently. And that's obviously important to ensure that we can continue the persistence and the resilience of the ORCID service, and we can invest in renewing our services. The vast majority of those fees come from our members, so thank you very much if you are representing a member organization. We saw good growth in 2025. That's 7% revenue growth and 12% growth in costs, which enabled us to generate a surplus of around 12%. Next slide. So now we're going to start to talk about our new strategy. Before I go into the details of this, I'll just spend you a bit of time talking about how we generated the strategy. Next slide, please. So we use a layered strategic planning process here at ORCID. Not that revolutionary, it's a fairly standard approach. But as a mission-driven organization, we are guided overall by our vision as an organization and by our mission and our values. And those really set out our aspirations for what we want to achieve as an organization. We then create a strategic plan, which is what we're going to talk about in this presentation as we just launched the new one, and also an annual plan each year as well. So we'll be flipping back and forth as we go through the themes, talking about both our longer term strategic objectives for the next 4 years and our specific goals for 2026. We'll also have a little bit of a look back to 2025 as we go as well. Next slide. So we've settled on a cadence of about 4 years for the strategic plan. So the next plan will cover the period from 2026 through 2029. And as mentioned, we do annual planning each year. We do keep an eye on our mission and review that every 10 years or so. And the ORCID board did reconfirm our mission as part of our planning cycle last year. Next slide. So we're happy to announce we've now moved into the era of ORCID 2030. You can download the strategic plan after this if you're interested. And we'll now dive into each one of those strategic topics. I think there's one more slide if we go to the next one. Let's talk about how we built the plan. So we used a methodology called SOAR, which is abbreviation stands for Strengths, Opportunities, Aspirations, and Results. It's not that dissimilar to the SWOT process you may have heard of or been more familiar with, but it's really based on positive psychology, thinking about both our strengths and opportunities as an organization, and then mapping those into our aspirations, what we hope to achieve, and how we will measure whether we're successful in achieving those. And this is a very collaborative process. We basically spent the year building this strategy last year, held lots of workshops with our full team, our board, with our consortia lead organizations, with our researcher advisory council, to try and get as much input as possible. Next slide, please, Kimberly. All right, so I'm going to also talk about our first strategic theme before handing on to Julie to talk about the next one. The first strategic theme is called Empowering Researchers, and that really represents a bolder, little bit more externally focused evolution of our previous theme of increasing value to researchers. And it represents a subtle evolution of what ORCID has always done in providing researcher-centric services, embracing a willingness to take on a broader set of challenges and serve a broader cross-section of the research community. We have 5 strategic objectives under this theme. These are things that are quite high level and we're aiming to work on over the next 4 years. First is to help researchers everywhere build their reputations and visibility. The next is to make ORCID smarter, use automation to do more of the work for researchers while keeping them in control. Thirdly, to continue to increase the value of ORCID for researchers beyond the STEM fields, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Fourth is to enable researchers to share a broader range of their contributions to research. And lastly, to strengthen our outreach to researchers about the value we offer. Next slide. Before we talk about our more detailed plans for 2026 in this area, just a little look back at what we managed to get done last year. So one of the things we were very happy to do was to align and update our work types vocabulary, providing much better support for the kinds of research outputs used by humanities and arts researchers. We introduced a couple of features to allow researchers to feature their most prominent works in their record and highlight them, giving them more ability to control how their record appears. We piloted a project called Researcher Connect, which I'll talk about in the next couple of slides. We solved over 80,000 support tickets. So we have a great user support team, very, very dedicated, and we do our best to help researchers solve any problems they might have and get the most value out of it. Next slide. So now we're going to talk about looking forward, our plans for 2026. We're going to continue to work on those automation improvements that help users populate their records. I'll talk about that in a bit more detail in the next slide. We are working on our account recovery experience. That's the situation where somebody can't access their account, usually because they registered with an institutional email address. They no longer have access to that address. Those are some of our most tricky support queries to to deal with because we want to make sure that we only grant access to the real account holder. So we want to make some improvements there. We're going to improve our self-service user support capabilities to keep a lid on those 80,000 support tickets as more and more usage of the ORCID service grows. We're also taking a look at our user account security features. A lot of services rely on ORCID sign-in as their access control mechanism. So we're implementing best practices, for example, emailing users when anything changes on their account in case they didn't make the change themselves. And finally, continuing to help researchers demonstrate the trustworthiness of their track records. Next slide, Kimberly. So I want to highlight a couple of those. I talked briefly earlier about the Researcher Connect feature. We have many institutions, universities, research institutions who have local systems that integrate with ORCID and can update ORCID profiles on behalf of their researchers. Sometimes researchers don't know about them, and getting researchers to link these institutional systems with their ORCID profiles is a challenge. We've built a feature we're calling Researcher Connect, which enables us to notify users when they sign into their ORCID records that there's an institutional system that would like them to connect and would help them keep their records updated. That's just launched after a successful pilot last year, but we're very excited about the results we're seeing from that. The other thing we've launched already in 2026 is a new user interface for importing your works. We've replaced something called our previous search and link wizards. We're giving more prominence to certified service providers, those which have implemented best practice features for their ORCID integrations, such as the ability to automatically keep your profile up to date after you've enabled the connection. So another one that we're excited to see in reducing the work that researchers have to do to maintain their profiles themselves. So that's empowering researchers. Let me hand over now to Julie to talk about connecting research information.
Thank you, Chris. So, strategic theme 2 is connecting research information. Now, this is really the heart of our mission, and we actually, for ORCID 2030, merged our old increasing value to members and upholding trust and integrity goals into this single theme to reflect what ORCID has really become, this kind of central hub for the global research community for global research data. And while our community is incredibly engaged, we want to move our members from not just consuming data, but to actively contributing to it and making it really easy for them to do that. So our goal here really is to flip the script so that more organizations are adding validated data that they hold about their researchers into their ORCID records. And by leveling up the quality of these integrations between their systems and the ORCID registry, we can make sure that the data flowing through the ORCID registry isn't just high volume, because it is growing more and more every month, really, but it's also high signal and it's reliable for everyone who consumes it. Also, over the next 4 years, we'll be tightening our certified service provider criteria. So if a platform has that ORCID CSP stamp, you'll know that it hits the highest bar for data integrity. So this has been established by criteria that has been set by the community. And as the data, the metadata gets cleaner and more complete, ORCID starts becoming more of like this engine that powers other tools and discovery platforms. And we do know that we can't do this in a vacuum, so we'll be doubling down on our partnerships with organizations across the research ecosystem, as well as national ID systems, organizations like that. We want the global research infrastructure to be a seamless web, not this disconnected silos that can't talk to each other. So when a connection happens in ORCID, the whole ecosystem should feel the benefit, and that's what really we're working toward. And that's the vision that's encompassed by this connecting research information. And before I dive into the 2026 roadmap, I want to share a little bit about what we achieved in 2025. Um, and making the data in ORCID records more complete and just more useful for everyone is really an ongoing effort, and it has been for years, and it will probably be for years into the future. And most notably in 2025, we tackled a huge gap, which is editorial service. Journal editors, as many of you know, they're the ones that do the heavy lifting to make sure research is actually solid before it hits the world, before it gets published in those journals. And for way too long, that's really been a lot of invisible labor. And now they can get this validated credit right in their ORCID record with our editorial services. Um, is just it makes making sure that that is just as official and findable as their own research papers. Again, to ensure that this data, data is easy to find, we also expanded our certified service provider program to include discovery systems. So this means the platforms that researchers use to search for expertise can now be integrated with ORCID records. We're also focused on making our data more usable for high-level exploratory analysis. And early in 2025, through a partnership with Digital Science, we now host the annual ORCID public data file on Google BigQuery from 2024 and 2025 and on. So this will provide a powerful, low barrier way for institutions to analyze global research trends. And you can think of it as taking a massive, complicated file and turning it into an easy to use dashboard. So universities can actually see, other organizations can actually see what's happening in global research without needing a PhD in data science. So we really wanted to just make that as democratic and open and as accessible as possible. We also scaled our webinar program in 2025 to 28 events that reached across 92 countries. This really ensures that the community trust network isn't just a technical concept or an abstract concept, but it really is a global reality that supports researchers in organizations regardless of their geography. And finally, we addressed a question that we still get often. Does ORCID want to replace national IDs or other kinds of researcher IDs? Well, the answer is a hard no. And if we go to the next slide, we took a major step in 2025 to clarify exactly where ORCID stands in this increasingly complex and interconnected research landscape that we all live and work in. So we partnered with the consultancy MoreBrains to publish a definitive white paper titled "It's ORCID and Not ORCID or." And the core message of this work is foundational to our 2030 vision. ORCID was never designed to replace any existing identification systems, whether they're national, disciplinary, or proprietary. Instead, the unique persistent identifier that we provide functions kind of as a pivot point, allowing data to flow seamlessly across disparate databases, platforms, and national boundaries. And by positioning ORCID as this cooperative hub and clarifying that that's what we are, we provide this much needed consistency across what can often be fragmented research systems. And this is particularly vital for researchers whose work moves across borders or between different academic fields. Our role at ORCID, as you'll see in this paper, and we really do encourage you to read this, is that a researcher's contributions are recognized accurately and efficiently, regardless of where they're based or where their work is published. So we're not building another silo or a silo to rule them all. We're building a robust scholarly communication network that respects local systems while providing global interoperability. And it's really this ORCID and approach that allows us to scale our impact. So when a researcher uses their local or national ID and that's integrated with ORCID, their data can still reach the global stage. And this is about making the entire ecosystem stronger through partnership. So again, if you haven't had a chance to read it, this white paper has become a key reference point for us and for our conversations with national funders, government bodies, and and that. So I'm going to move on to the next slide where we'll talk about our plans for 2026. So you can think of our 2026 work in this theme as moving from plugging things in to making sure that those links between other systems and ORCID are high quality and easy to use across the entire scholarly ecosystem, global scholarly ecosystem. And first, we're ditching the whole here's a manual, good luck approach. We're helping our partners learn from each other by sharing real world success stories. We want every new integration to be solid from day one, and we want to help our organizations get there. And for those who do need the manual, we're fixing those too. We're cleaning up our guides so that researchers understand what ORCID is, so that administration understands what ORCID is, developers and integrators can find exactly what they need without digging through a lot of noise on our website or in a Google search. And on the tech side, we're updating our API so it can handle all our newest features like that editorial service that I just talked about. We're also strengthening our ties, of course, again with national ID systems. And finally, we're looking ahead to digital credentials, and we want to make it effortless for researchers to show off their verified degrees and certifications directly on their ORCID record. In short, 2026 is about making ORCID a user-friendly hub, not just a database. So it's about making the whole research world feel a bit more connected. And next slide, please. And as I mentioned, a lot of our 2026 work with connecting research information is shifting toward just deeper collaboration. And this means actively discussing with our community how to co-create integration resources. The goal here is to improve our integration reviews to ensure every connection is high quality. And by building these shared resources and peer learning models, we're moving beyond simple data exchange to maximize the actual value of these interconnected systems for both the institution and the researcher. And at the same time, I also mentioned that we're continuing our high-level conversations with national researcher ID systems. We recognize that researchers often navigate multiple identities, national identities, institutional identities, global identities, and our 2026 plan ensures that ORCID remains this bridge or can act more as a bridge that can make these identities work together rather than against each other. So hopefully by focusing on these deep connections and collaborations will help to make the global research infrastructure more resilient and more unified. And I'm going to pass this back to Chris to discuss how we're broadening our community.
Great. Thanks, Julie. So indeed, our third theme is broadening our community, which is really a continuation of our previous theme of increasing global participation. And it represents our determination to continue to do the important and successful work we've done to increase participation in ORCID in regions with lower adoption. But at the same time, we're broadening our ambitions regarding the set of communities and use cases that ORCID should engage with, highlighting our continuing commitment to ensure that the current member organizations get the most out of their participation. So again, five strategic objectives here over the next 4 years to continue to expand our network of community partners in parts of the world with fewer resources and lower participation, exploring new models to engage them. Second is to increase engagement with international and intergovernmental organizations working in research and education. Third is to expand ORCID's relevance to use cases such as research administration, digital credentials, research security, and research funding. Fourth, to reduce barriers to integration and participation, helping all of our member organizations gain maximum benefit from their membership. And last but importantly, to secure the long-term future of our very successful Global Participation Fund. Next slide. So again, a quick look back on 2025. Some of the things we did in this area last year include two new consortia, one in Uganda, which is our fourth consortia in Africa. We were also excited to work with ASREN, which is the Arab States Research and Education Network organization, to launch our second regional consortium in North Africa and the Middle East. We continue to see great growth of our our first regional consortium, which is Latin America and Caribbean. We're starting to see, we've seen members from several new countries join last year. Um, and in both of those cases, we've seen organizations take advantage of our membership equity program, which offers reduced consortium membership fees based on the income level of the country. Last but not least, our Global Participation Fund. We have two grant programs under that fund. One awarding grants for community outreach and engagement, and the other one for technical integration of open source platforms with ORCID. And we awarded just a little under $200,000 last year through 11 grants. Next slide. So now looking forward, our 2026 goals to implement our affiliate network model for small organizations, which I'll go into in a little bit more detail on the next slide. To expand our membership model to include an option for entire countries who want to participate, to increase our strategic engagement with key international policy-making organizations, to pursue opportunities to broaden our partnerships and grow and diversify our revenues, important for our sustainability, to update our member and consortia directory on our website so people know who else is participating in ORCID. And lastly, an important service change for our consortia leads to enable them to manage their API credentials for themselves through our member portal. Next slide. So as I mentioned, I'm very happy to announce, and I actually think this is the first time we have publicly announced this, is that we'll be introducing a new model for organizational participation in ORCID this year, which is called our affiliate network. And this is designed for very, very small organizations. It's really aimed at very, very small researcher-led journals, but we're not making it specific to journals. Any organization with revenue below about $10,000 a year or expenses below that level will be able to participate. Very heavily reduced fee, one that, having talked to a number of folks who we hope to partner with to pilot this in this area, we believe will be affordable for these organizations. And we really want to enable, again, particularly small journals, to participate in equal footing and enable them to demonstrate their trustworthiness in just the same way as the big guys do. So we've been working on this for a couple of years. It's quite a tricky model to design, but we're really excited to roll this one out. We'll be working through what we call affiliate network coordinators. These are organizations that already have relationships, for example, with many small journals, sometimes in a regional setting, sometimes in another context, and they will manage the relationship with the affiliate organizations, those individual journals, etc., to enable us to scale this out. So it's similar to our consortia model, but really designed for really broad adoption. We're very excited about. Next slide. And then the other thing I wanted to highlight in this section is our plan to increase strategic engagement with some key international policymaking organizations. My colleague Ivo is now focused on this, and we're having conversations with many of the EU research and science institutions, EOSC, which is the European Open Science Cloud, and also stepping up our engagement with intergovernmental organizations such as the World Bank, the IMF, CERN, and OECD. All right, so on to our fourth strategic theme, and I'm going to hand it back to Julie.
Thank you, Chris. So we know that without a relentless, long-lasting commitment to trust, none of our other priorities are even remotely possible. And our last strategic plan was written, I believe, in 2020, 2021, if I'm remembering correctly. And the world has changed a lot since then. Issues like research misinformation, the complexity of digital identity, AI, and shifting geopolitical boundaries and geopolitical complexities have really moved from the periphery of everyone's awareness to the center of everyone's concern. And to meet these challenges, we've defined some key objectives to guide us through to 2030. Most importantly, we're strengthening our role as a key provider of trust and information about trust to combat misinformation. And we want to provide the leadership and the community-backed track record necessary to address research integrity issues head on. Crucially, we're shifting the focus back to the researcher, as they're the center of everything that we do by helping them demonstrate their own trustworthiness through open and transparent evidence of their own contributions. We're also increasing our footprint in the wider digital identity ecosystem to ensure ORCID remains a seamless part of a researcher's daily workflow. Finally, we remain steadfast in our geopolitical neutrality. In a divided world, ORCID remains a bridge, and working with all of the stakeholders on equal terms is a main priority here. And by staying true to all of these, we hope that the global research infrastructure can remain as inclusive as possible and hopefully beyond as inclusive and efficient as possible. Uh, Kimberly, could you move to the next slide, please? And I do want to look back on 2025 just briefly. One of the biggest wins that we had in 2025 was finally opening the black box of anonymous data use. And for a long time, we had massive amounts of traffic hitting our servers anonymously. So following a board mandate, we rolled out new usage limits in early 2025 to encourage people to sign in to use data to get, to hit our API and to get our public data. And this was really a huge step for us for trust and sustainability because it ensures that the organizations using the most resources are finally helping to cover costs. All while making the whole network, the ORCID network, more transparent and much more reliable, and allowing us to keep our data as open as we possibly can and as available to as many people as possible. And the impact was immediate and it was massive between February and I believe April, may have been a little bit later than that. Anonymous requests plummeted by 70%. We went from 77 million anonymous hits a month down to just 17 million. And now this wasn't just a drop in traffic, as you can see by the graph there. That shows a successful migration from the anonymous API to the public API. So people are still able to access our data. We just moved users into those accountable, registered channels that are still public and still open. Now, this shifted two things. It protected our non-commercial rules, and it actually helped us grow, and it helped us deliver value to existing members and to new members. And so this was a really big win for us to help with sustainability and trustworthiness. Kimberly, next slide, please. Thank you. So now let's look forward to the 2026 annual plan. And we have 5 priorities that translate our high-level goals into measurable impact for our work. And our first priority really here is clarity. Just how are we making it easy for our members to articulate exactly how ORCID advances trust and integrity in their own specific contexts, in their own specific organizations and workflows? A major technical focus and social focus this year is the expansion of trust marker adoption. So we're not just looking for more trust markers in the ORCID registry, we're looking at expanding the types of data they accompany to provide a more complete view of a researcher's scholarly bona fides. And hand in hand with this, we're doubling down on our partnerships with the publishing community, working to increase publisher collection and use of ORCID IDs at the point of submission, especially for co-authors. This is to ensure that the link between all contributors of that research and their work is captured accurately from the very start. And trust isn't just about what we include, it's about our ability to proactively filter out what doesn't belong. As the volume of data in the ORCID registry grows, so does our responsibility to protect it. And in 2026, we're implementing enhanced spam detection and mitigation capabilities. And this is a critical defensive measure to ensure the ORCID registry remains a clean, very high signal environment for everyone who relies on our data. Finally, we're conducting a comprehensive review to advance ORCID's geographical diversity. And as everybody on this call knows, our mission only works if it's truly global. We want to ensure that our tools are accessible and relevant to researchers in every corner of the world, regardless of their local infrastructure or geopolitical situation. And these 5 objectives for 2026 ensure that as we grow, we can grow with integrity. Next slide, please. So I want to talk a little bit more about the trust markers and um, focusing on depth and verification. So specifically, we were looking to enable organizations to add more and more diverse kinds of trust markers to ORCID records, so to create a richer and more reliable digital CV for every researcher, as I mentioned before. And to do this, we're looking to certify a wider range of service providers to ensure that the platforms that researchers already use every day are pre-configured to send validated data directly to their records. Alongside this, we're working one-on-one with our member organizations to activate all of those integrations, those third-party integrations. In many cases, our members simply need to flip a switch to enable them, and we'd like to ensure that they're really fully utilizing these connections and can automate the flow of the data that they hold about their researchers into their records. We also recognize that adoption is a social process as much as it is a technical one. So this year in our engagement with members in consortia, we want to showcase real world integrations. By sharing these success stories and technical how-tos across the community, we hope to lower the barrier to entry for smaller or less resourced institutions. And finally, as I mentioned earlier too, we're tackling a persistent gap in scholarly attribution, the co-author. We're actively encouraging journals to collect ORCID IDs for all authors, not just the corresponding author. And this will ensure that every contributor receives the credit they deserve and that the trust markers on their records are as complete as possible. And together, we hope that these 4 initiatives will make the ORCID record a more powerful, a more multi-dimensional proof of a researcher's impact that they have throughout their career. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to Tommy or Steph.
That'll be me. Thank you.
Okay.
Appreciate it, and apologies to all for joining this crowd a little bit belated. In this next strategic theme 5, we focus on our resiliency. This is both a technological and an operational element, drawing attention to the work that's done to ensure our longevity and our financial resilience and our long-term sustainability. Our objectives, we're looking to diversify revenue streams, largely within membership, and the affiliate network mentioned earlier is an example of that underlying effort. Improve and simplify our processes, which is a continuing improvement effort that we have to make sure that the funds are going to mission as best as possible. We are, of course, advancing our cybersecurity program, previously launched a couple of years back, and continuing, and the business continuity plans related therein to ensure that we're here not just for the long term, but on a day-to-day basis. And our understanding of AI, as well as machine learning technologies, still new to the world, but accelerating incredibly rapidly. And we're looking to review these tools as they're adopted internally for our operations and deploy them to improve the underlying processes and services that we provide within our team and, of course, to our membership. And then support and develop our staff in this being a great place to work. Next slide, please. So in 2025, we focused, of course, on cybersecurity and our staff experience and the financial resilience that was highlighted in the prior plan. We both advanced cybersecurity with the admin portal for ORCID support staff and a host of security features. And then we separated our hosting environments, which had previously been connected together. So test our sandbox and our production environments, which reduces the blast radius, I love that, of any potential attack. Security features were introduced for ORCID staff with enhanced VPN technology, as well as tools that review and ensure that we don't have internal attacks or other spam and phishing efforts around email. Deployed a new static application security testing as well under the cybersecurity program, a very robust program, and we've already reaped great benefits internally around what is going on in terms of attacks. We enhanced our staff benefits in 2025. We launched a sabbatical program and have had one staffer already take advantage of it successfully. So we're looking forward to that, continuing to support the health and well-being of our staff. We published a detailed promotional policy to give clarity and transparency to the staff around these internal procedures. And we implemented a central talent management platform. We take professional development very seriously and want to make sure our staff are keeping current within their roles in supporting the mission. And last, we increased efficiency and transparency. We did select PNC Bank as a new bank, switching away from Capital One. This was communicated across our member network, and we had great success and are finding PNC to be a great partner in this regard. And then last, in terms of processes, for an example, we had many improvements, but onboarding and offboarding were greatly enhanced. And we looked at benchmarking our compensation to ensure, as best we can, abiding by our values and equity and those kinds of requirements. Next slide, please.
Great. And then I will talk a little bit about our 2026 goals. As you can see, we are quite ambitious with our 2026 goals and as they relate to ORCID's resiliency. On the next slide that we go to, we can hone in on the cybersecurity measures that we'll be taking. Kimberly, if you could just advance the slides there. So in 2026, we're reaching a milestone where we will finalize our 3-year cybersecurity program. This was originally a priority brought to us by the board, and our team's been working hard over these past 3 years. So in 2026, the team is working on business continuity plans and also working through our cloud security posture management tools and processes and making sure we have an adoption of industry standard security guidelines. Our tech team's also ensuring full compliance with current OAuth specifications so that our community can benefit from the latest security features and increased standards compliance. And another focus is making sure that ORCID's database can be scaled and maintained properly. So our team is migrating to the latest database version for improved security and performance, and also taking advantage of those managed database services. And with the next slide, we'll focus kind of more internally on what we're doing to continue to make ORCID a great place to work. As you might remember, ORCID is a fully remote organization. We have 44 staff members across 14 different countries, so there are always a lot of moving pieces, and we are very intentional that we make our remote workspace work well for our team. So this year, we're really focusing on further investing in team growth, equity, and our interpersonal bonds. So around professional growth, to complement the promotion policy we launched last year, we're working on a competencies framework to provide that greater clarity around growth opportunities. And we also will continue to invest in our professional development program. We also are continuing work around global equity and our benefits that are offered to staff, and that includes a review around supplemental health, sick leave, and retirement. Again, that's to ensure worldwide equity across the locations where our various staff members are based. And we are continuing to focus on connection and collaboration, both virtually and in person. So we'll continue to host our annual team retreat and also create more opportunities for face-to-face connection. And with that, I will provide a bit of a governance update with my board secretary hat on. I'm happy to welcome our two newest board members, Devika Madali, who is the director of the Information and Library Network Center, InfluNet, based out of India, as well as Mercury Shintindo, who is the executive director of the Africa Bioethics Network in Kenya. So with these two members of our board, we now have 11 countries represented across our 15 board members. And as a community governed organization, we are very pleased to have a board that represents our stakeholders, our regional members. Again, they reflect our community and guide our strategy. And we are also happy on the next slide to welcome our new board chair, Heath Marks, CEO of the Australian Access Federation, or AAF, out of Australia. And Heath is just starting his second term on the board, and we're delighted to have him in this new role. And with that, we can go to the next slide, and thank you for joining us, and also put a plug in for our 2025 annual report that will be releasing soon. And I will hand it over to Kimberly, who will be moderating our Q&A. So thank you again.
Yes, thank you, Stephanie. Thank you to all of our senior team members for presenting today. It looks like we have a couple of questions. I think it was a bit tongue-in-cheek earlier, but at the very beginning of our presentation, someone asked if we really do have researchers in every country, including the Democratic Republic of Korea. And Chris did confirm, yes, he did the analysis himself. We really have a very global reach. Chris, did you want to say anything more about that?
Yeah, I did actually check our reporting while Julie was talking, and we have 329 ORCID records with the North Korea country code. So, yeah, whether they actually use the system when they were in North Korea, we don't know, but they certainly indicated that they have some indication with North Korea. And I think even the tiniest island nation, we have one or two researchers in. So yeah, it's quite a remarkable fact.
Very interesting. Well, thanks for doing that work, Chris. The Q&A is open, and we have about 10 minutes for questions. So we invite anyone with questions to drop them in. You can also see some other questions that were answered during the presentation and check out the answers that our leadership and some staff online have provided. I think it's not necessarily a question, but definitely a comment that maybe we can add some context and detail to. Someone is saying it would be great if there was an easier way for members to add plus markers on records under professional activities like the Distinction Award. These records are not highly structured like works and might not reside on a single system that connect with ORCID. Does anybody have anything they want to add to that?
Yeah, as we don't have any members of the product team online today because they're all asleep in Europe, I can try and answer that one. Yoon, I'm not sure if you come from a consortium member, but if you do, then all of our consortium members have access to our affiliation manager tool, which is a little bit confusingly named because we consider professional activities, including things like distinctions, as one of the categories of affiliation because they're awarded by organizations. So yeah, if you have access to the affiliation manager, you can certainly add those and essentially upload via spreadsheets.
Thanks, Chris. Um, they did follow up asking if that's available to non-consortia, but I believe the affiliation manager tool is a consortia only tool for now, correct?
It is at the moment. I mean, reach out to your engagement manager. Well, certainly, it's something we're always discussing.
Excellent, thank you. Our next question is, will the new peer support / learning groups be structured by organization type? The types of activities done by such organizations, universities, funders, publishers, infrastructure providers, etc., would likely be quite similar.
Yeah, I could take that one. John, thank you for that question. We haven't worked out the details of how that's going to how we're going to structure that. But you make a good point, and it would make sense for us to to make sure that that the activities are, or at least the information sharing that happens can be can be applied across different types of activities. But yeah, we'll take that suggestion to heart as we form this. Thanks, John.
Thanks, Julie. The next question is a little technical. Can institutions verify or authenticate affiliations in ORCID records?
Yeah, great question. Thanks, Rajan. And the answer is yes. These are one of the categories of trust marker that Julie talked about. And it's a very high priority for us to encourage our institutional members to add validated affiliations to ORCID records. That's always done with the permission of the researcher. So there's a mechanism, a flow for the researcher to grant permission to an organization. And you have to be from a member organization to do this. And then essentially there are three ways that you can do this. If you use one of our certified service provider systems, such as a CRIS system, a research information management system, the certified systems we've confirmed have that feature built into them already. You just have to turn them on, and that should work for you. If you're a member of one of our consortia groups, then you'll have access to the affiliation manager. This is a tool that enables you to add those affiliations by effectively uploading the data into a spreadsheet-like format as a CSV file. And finally, if you have a system of your own that's not one of our certified systems, and many of our member organizations have done this, you can have your tech folks do a custom integration via API. So if you're at a member organization and you're interested in doing that, we'd love to hear from you. Please reach out to your engagement lead, and we can help you with all the details.
For sure. Thanks, Chris. I think we have time for at least one or two more questions. I've got some from registration, but if you're on the call with us, please feel free to drop them in the Q&A. I noticed in registration that there was a lot of interest in learning more about our new Researcher Connect feature. So for members that haven't turned this on yet, what is the most significant benefit that we've seen so far from the initial pilot groups or the folks that have turned it on?
Sure. So we piloted the feature with institutions who have had ORCID integrations for a long time. So they're quite experienced kind of ORCID with ORCID integrations at their institutions. And the idea for this feature was the fact that we often hear from those institutions is, it's really difficult to persuade particularly new folks, new faculty, new researchers, new students joining the organization to connect their institutional system to their ORCID profile. And typically, institutions have different ways of doing this. They have emails they send out, they have LibGuides, they talk to people, they hold roadshows, they incorporate this into information literacy training, those kinds of things. What we've done now is added to that, and we can now configure essentially the system such that a notification will pop up saying, hey, your university would like to connect with your ORCID profile, can update your information. And in the pilot, we saw essentially huge numbers of folks going through that flow because we have folks regularly signing in and using their ORCID profiles. Maybe we're grabbing their attention at a time they might be more open to doing something with ORCID. They're already signed in. But I think in one case it was a five-fold increase, even though the notifications, I think they go out twice to give people a reminder. But essentially, we saw a five-fold increase in the number of people who connected their institutional systems within a year. So we're really excited to roll that out, help researchers save time by having their institutions update their profiles for them, and also increase the amount of trustworthy data on those profiles.
For sure. It's really impressive. And if folks are interested in turning on this feature, do they reach out to their engagement lead to get more information?
Yeah, or they can contact our member support team as well.
Awesome. Well, I'm not seeing any more questions in the chat, so I think we must have given a very thorough presentation and everybody is just, oh, here comes a big one. I think we've got time. It would be great if ORCID could help convince some large legal publishers to include their authors' ORCID details in their journals. Some of these legal publishers operate with regional offices across the world. They have authors from academia and legal practitioner backgrounds, but seem to be hard to budge in this ORCID adoption and journal publishing. Any help you can do to convince them would be great. Any thoughts on that before we sign off?
No, it's a good point. I mean, I think this ties into our interest in increasing the use and relevance of ORCID in arts and humanities. I think fundamentally, publishers are only going to do something if there's something in it for them. And we have spent a lot of time building the case for all of our stakeholder groups, not just publishers, building the value stories. But I think, the more that these publishers hear from their authors, hey, why can't I add my ORCID profile? They're the people who are going to shift the needle on this, right? We obviously spend a lot of time talking to all of our stakeholders, including publishers and vendors, but our ability to persuade them to do anything, which is not particularly the bigger organizations, which they don't perceive to be a benefit to them, is limited. So, we'd love to talk to you about this, reach out to your contacts, but also, the nag factor from researchers is quite strong. And by the way, if you are at an institution that has licensing deals with those publishers, put that clause in your RFPs, put a clause in your contracts requiring ORCID integration. And we actually have a sample clause we can provide to you and encourage you to include in your RFPs and license agreements.
Thanks, Chris. I see a couple more questions have come in. Unfortunately, we don't have time to address them tonight, but I will follow up with the senior team and we'll provide answers to these questions in the materials that we send out. So I want to thank again the senior team for joining us and all attendees. Chris, anything you'd like to say? Close out the session?
Yeah, thank you very much for your time. We're excited to again tackle the new year with lots of exciting things to do. We're most of all excited to have such a great community who support us and work with us, and we're very much in this together with all of you. So thank you for your time. Look forward to working with you all.
Thanks, everyone.